Hello, guys. My name is Wale from Taji Mag. How you doing this wonderful Thursday?
Good, thank you.
We're doing
Good.
great.
All right. Let's get to your wonderful story, man. My father's shadow. First of all, I have to ask, like, what was your vision of putting this together visually? Because it's beautiful, like the colors, the editing, perspective. Like, what it went to, and what went into all that?
A lot of thought, care, and consideration on the most part. 10 years worth of working in Nigeria and working with local communities, 10 years plus even of working with local communities and allowing them to be stakeholders in what we're making and in the way we make work. I think on the more sort of visual side is like leaning into the frequency of Lagos and making it a character, and also the themes of the film, which are this idea of decay and things sort of like rotting and falling apart, and on one side looking beautiful, and on the other side sort of falling in on themselves. Yeah, I mean, I think when you get into making a film, you start leaning into like themes and how you can feed ideas to the audience without necessarily like spoon feeding them. It's like we're constantly like reinforcing, and it's like positive affirmations, but we're reinforcing that visually, like continuously.
Okay. Well, lady, you want to add to that, or?
I think for me, just in writing about Lagos, I try to pack as much detail, as much detail, as much nuance, as much, you know, granular detail as possible, and just things that I'd seen that fascinate me, colors that I've seen that fascinate me, and being able to travel to other parts of the world, realizing that, oh, these are things that are unique to this environment. Good, bad, beautiful, ugly, whatever it may be. They're things that are unique to this environment. And then, so in packing that into the script, then seeing it visually brought to life, elevated what I even imagined it could look like. I think that the choices that were made, the way it was filmed, and just little things, like it could just be a little scene with flowers blowing in the wind. Those things really like captured all the detail in a very specific but beautiful way. So yeah.
Okay. Talking about perspective, like I seen Lizard when it came out at the film festival a couple years ago. So I'm just really intrigued by how you guys utilize the perspective of youth, especially like how the father interacts with other people, and you put that perspective as is they're trying to interpret what's going on. Can you talk about those things?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, the perspective is like critical to the film. It's something that was touched on quite early in development, and we really wanted to honor the fact that this was a day for two kid brothers with their father. They're getting to witness their father in the world, seeing the constraints of the world placed against him. They're getting to see a different version of him in town than they probably recognize at home. They're getting to hold him accountable and understand their relationship with him and masculinity and his performance in the world. Um, but I think what the father represents for the and the audience at the kids' perspectives, but what the father offers is a perspective into Nigeria, into the politics, into the larger world, into the forces at play, into his political aversions and the sort of conflict and tension between the people and like the military. I think we had to stay with the kids because I think if you go with the father, it's a completely different film and a completely different story, and we really wanted to remind people that this is more of a tender exploration of grief and memory and nuance and context.
Yeah, and then just to add to that, I think also like zeroing in on the kid's perspective also gives it a sense of this fantastical, larger than life sort of piece, because like from children, everything is, especially as they're going into Lagos for the first time. So they're seeing everything in almost this like magical, wide-eyed sort of way that sometimes as adult we get desensitized to. So I feel like it was a very unique perspective to even allow people to enter Lagos through that manner, like through that fashion, and enter Nigeria through that fashion of just this. Because there are a lot of things as Nigerians we think, oh yeah, this is normal. But I feel for someone visiting or for someone seeing it for the first time, same as the kids, they'll be like, wow, that seems quite crazy, So I feel like that perspective allowed us anchor that and introduce a lot more of those moments.
And you guys are wrestling fans, right? Because that's all you had. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So
we were
who
huge wrestling fans growing up.
y'all still watching now, or?
No,
Not
I
as
don't.
much. No, I think it
Who
No.
won?
changed when it changed the name from WWF to WWE. We sort of, I think we were part of that generation, but we had a lot of OG toys and paper men like the boys had in the film.
Yeah.
Who won most of the matches?
Well,
Ooh,
I mean, the thing is that like I feel we had a cousin actually that lived in our estate growing up, and he used to draw the wrestlers really well and cut them out for us. So it was my job to negotiate with him to draw us like good characters because we didn't have the toys of like Macho Man Randy Savage and Bret the Hitman Hart and Undertaker. So he would draw all those characters for us, and then I go and sometimes I steal some of his best drawings as well. So
yeah,
yeah, we made our own toys.
yeah. But for me, it was the Ultimate Warrior. That was my favorite character. I remember.
And so the biggest question I had was, why did the father choose to take his sons with them to Lagos like now? What was so unique about this moment?
Do you want to go? Yeah.
You get it. You get it.
All right, cool. Yeah, no, I feel that, I feel the sense that, in a sense, right, I feel like he was coming. I mean, his journey, his mission throughout the film was as which is what a lot of fathers and a lot of men observe to be their mission in terms of parenting, is the provider. So he's trying to get his wages and he's trying to again provide for his family. And I think that that day, just seeing the disappointment, of like this fleeting visit and how the kids are kind of, like they'd always, like one of them, especially in the film, would say how I believed he would always come back. I think that day was then to, like be present. And I think it's kind of communicating a little bit about provision as a parent versus presence. It's a very, very delicate balance because as fathers, as men, we feel like we have to provide. That's the job, and that's what society extra imposes on you. Like so, you're meant to provide, and then how do you balance that? Especially in a world where we're taught the more you hustle, the more you get. And then an environment like Nigeria where the more you hustle doesn't mean the more you get. Like you could break your back and try and figure it out, but it doesn't mean you get anything more. And I think that resonates with a lot of people because I feel a lot of us, myself, I became a father in the process of making this film, and I think it's something that I grapple with even now. Working, touring, all of that, and being present. So I think in that day, he just felt compelled, to let them come on the journey, let them see his world, let them see his life. And I think that, over the course of that day, give them more glimpses as to who he really is as a man. Yeah.
Speaking of which, there's a very personable like scene where the father expresses tells the origin of his father and then how much he loved his wife. Like, was that the most challenging part to write and direct, or do you have a different scene that was harder to direct?
I'll go with directing. I think it was harder for reasons that are completely different to why you might think it is. I think I think we're all very close when we make films. It's really a family setting. Like I said, we've been shooting in Lagos for 10 years, and we decided to shoot on like what was effectively quite like a holiday destination. And I think when you take a cast and crew who've been really at it for almost 3 or 4 weeks in the trenches to like a really beautiful beach, everyone thinks they're on holiday all of a sudden. So that was the biggest challenge of that day, that everybody was at Club Med when we were supposed to be shooting the scene. So I was somewhat frustrated, and also it's 30-degree heat. We're in the water, the boys can't swim. We have to get this shot. So many reasons, like psychologically and logistically, it was tough. Less so the emotional side. I think the emotional side was more the funeral for me, the sort of aftermath of shooting the funeral. But I think that scene was the toughest to shoot, but for completely different reasons.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me as well, equally, the funeral scene was, I don't know. So it's been a weird experience, I've been saying in terms of emotions, because strangely enough, I didn't feel as much emotions writing as I do watching the film. Like it's actually quite an emotional watch for me. And every time it's always it's always the two scenes actually. One, the amusement park when they get to spend and everybody's kind of happy and like going on these rides and spending this really beautiful day because it almost feels foreboding that something's about to occur. And then I think the funeral scene at the end was particularly tough because a lot of it, you know, kind of takes you back to childhood and stuff you've experienced as well. So, you know, so for me, I was actually good in the writing part. I think the first time I wrote it, I watched it was when, a lot of the emotions started to surface.
I was gonna say because that was heavy. You guys just threw us in there. It wasn't just like a gradual. Whose decision was that to make us like start to cry and tear up? Who was it? Who can I blame?
Hey man, we're just gonna have to keep you guessing on that one, you know.
Because it was like, and it's tell me how intentional that was. Like the scene starts from the very beginning where they're in the house, they're in the shower,
Yeah.
and goes directly into the funeral. Like, I just want to know, like, what was your decision to make that decision?
I think in the best case scenario, when you're dealing with grief, closure is something that you experience if you grow old with your parents. You know, I think if you see them going to old age, maybe you get the closure you desire, depending on your level of relationship. But I think certainly as children, if you lose, if your relationship with the caregiver is fractured in tragic circumstances, you don't get that same level of closure. You don't get all the answers. You don't get handheld into the understanding of what loss and grief is at such a young age. And we wanted to mirror that experience in our characters for the audience. You know, if we are giving you the kids' perspective, that is their perspective. You know, they don't, especially in Black and African households, you don't ask those questions of like, you know, like how did daddy die? You know what I mean? You don't ask those questions. You're just told he's not coming back, and one day you have to dress up and go to the funeral. You know, and I think for us, it felt closer to home that's what our experience would have been like. So that's why that's the same experience we wanted to frame for the boys. But again, I said this before, whether people think the film is a ghost story or a dream or a magical day or a memory, all that really matters is that the boys had that day, they had that experience, and no one can take it away from them.
Oh
Yeah.
man, you said my next question. I was gonna say that, but
Felipe, sorry, we're at time, so maybe one more question and we should wrap. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
no, that's okay. Just can you guys describe the film in 3 words, and that's it.
I'll let you go, Akin.
Afro-futurist drama.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I really love the film. As you can see, hopefully you guys can get Lizard as a feature film. I'm interested in that one because that was wow.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you, Felipe. Nice to meet you.
Nice, Felipe. Thank you.